I want to start with the end of this story, and that's to tell you that it all worked out, but it did not feel like it was going to when it was unfolding. My husband and I were fostering. We fostered teenage girls for about a decade, and that always gave me plenty of material. It was an extraordinary test of our relationship with each other, our understanding of God's capacity to heal, and just our own social skills and family life. We had 2 foster daughters who were sisters, who we loved very much. We had known them their whole life, but they were continuing to be challenging as they were moving through adolescence, wrestling with their history, trying to understand their place in our family, trying to resist at times and lean into what God was doing in their lives. And the oldest one, by the 3rd year in my house, she had made every room challenging. Every dinner table, every after-school homework session, every bedtime. Just constantly, we found ourselves in the same kind of conflict, finally knowing I needed help. I reached out to a friend who was in private practice in Texas, and I told him to come to our house in Mexico. And I said, listen to any conversation, open any closet, challenge me in any way. We were having the same fight over and over again, and I need help. He came and was with our family for a number of days, and he witnessed something that happened before school one morning where our foster daughter walked out of her room in an inappropriately short skirt. And I told her, you can't go to school like that, go change. And she came out in a pair of jeans with this really teeny tiny little tank top. I'm like, also can I go to school like that? Eventually, after several rounds, she walked out in something I bought her, and I said, hey, you look beautiful, have a great day at school. And she walked out of my house and around the corner to catch a bus, but I looked at him and I said, she won, and she knows she won. And she knows that I know she won, because underneath what she had on is exactly what she wanted to wear. And as soon as she got out of eyesight, I'm positive she ripped the outer layer off and went to school how she wanted to. And he sat down and drew me a picture of a tree, and the tree had 3 parts to it. The top part, where the foliage was, he wrote the word attitude and actions. And the trunk of the tree, he wrote the word self-image. And the roots of the tree, he wrote the words truth, what we would recognize as God's truth. And he said, Beth, I've been listening to you for 3 days, and all you do is spend time at the top of your tree. All the airtime you have with your foster daughter is about either something to do with one of her actions or something to do with one of her attitudes. Homework, dishes, internet usage, cell phone, boys, her facial expressions, like you name it. That's what you have been talking to her about. He said, do you know anything about horticulture? When you cut off the top of a tree, it actually grows back twice as strong. And I'm like, can I get a witness? And he said, you know what? When she walked out of this house in a miniskirt, it wasn't personal. You were taking it personally. It was that the top of her tree feeds from the trunk of her tree, and the trunk of her tree is her understanding of who she is, her self-image. Somewhere along the line, she got the message that short skirt gives her value. That's why she walked out of here in that short skirt. And the reason that's impacting her actions, her self-image, is because it's coming from her idea of things that are true. We would recognize that as a lie. That's not where her value comes from, but she has accepted that as truth. So her lies impact the way she sees herself. The way she sees herself impacts her attitude and action. He's like, you're going about it all wrong. You need to talk to her about the things that are true. And I'm like, how do I find time in the midst of the internet and the homework and the boys and the facial expressions? And he said, well, I have a prescription for you. I want you to spend the next 90 days. And I don't want you to talk to her anything at all about her attitude and actions unless she's going to hurt herself or somebody else. And I was like, nothing at all about her skirt or her boyfriend, or like nothing. And he said, well, how's that working out for you? And I'm like, not very well. He said, just try it. And it doesn't make any sense for me to tell you this story and not tell you that that was a really hard assignment. And at that point in my life, I was already like practically a professional Christian. I knew my Bible really well, and I was struggling to find things that I know for sure are true in my word that I could layer into our conversations. I would have to go to my Bible in the morning and be like, Lord, what are you going to tell me so that I can tell her? And I got chance after chance to do so. One day she came home from school to tell me how lame our spring break plans were. And the truth of the reason why our spring break plans were lame is because she was a ward of the state, and I couldn't cross state lines with her. And man, I wanted her to take responsibility for those lame plans. I didn't want that laid on me, but that would have done absolutely nothing to help her or our relationship. So instead I just said, you know what? He's got plans for us next week, and they're full of a hope and a future. And I knew I was quoting the prophet Jeremiah. I didn't say to him, hey, by the way, so says Jeremiah. I just put that true thought into our conversation. A couple days later, she came home with this homework assignment with 100 pages and due the next day, and she hadn't even started, and she was freaking out, and everything in me wanted to say, how long have you known about this? And essentially shame her, not only for her actions, but how she was acting. But I knew that that wouldn't help us. And so I just said something about, you know what? He's before all things, and him all things hold together. Let's get started. Knowing I was quoting Colossians, not telling her that, but knowing that. And here's what I want to just testify to you. Over time, when she started to walk in the room, instead of being repelled by me, she was attracted to me. And not because of anything that was different about me, but the Bible tells us that his word is sweet to the taste like honey. And she wanted to come up and get a taste of it. And I found myself, as I was trying to tell her things that were true, I was finding myself taking in those truths for myself. And it doesn't always happen this way, so I don't want you to hear this like a formula, but by day 80 something, she did bow her knees and pray to receive the Lord. And it wasn't like, and then everything else was awesome and we lived happily ever after. I mean, we still had our same personalities and temperaments and histories that we were wrestling with, but things changed because now we were sisters in Christ. And I thought that that tree was like the magic parenting tool. And I was always thinking about it. Am I spending too much airtime up here at the top? Am I talking too much to kids about their attitudes and actions? Am I willing to really do the kinds of things I became a parent to do, which was not to talk about math or soccer or TV choices. I became a parent to talk to kids about the things I know for sure are true and to grow up a new generation of Christ followers. And I thought it was all about parenting. And then I had a radio show for a season, and I was on a radio show. We were talking about New Year's resolutions, and I was just saying all the things you say. Like I was like, hey, I'm gonna read more books this year and learn another language and lose 10 pounds, and kind of classic New Year's resolutions. And I went home that night and I wrote them down in my journal so I could remember in a few months to bring them back up on air and let everybody know how I was doing. And I was thinking about the fact that I had gained 10 pounds that year that I didn't want, and I wanted to lose it. And I was thinking about it, and in my journal I had a picture of the tree that I was always like kind of going back to refer to. And I thought, I think losing 10 pounds is probably akin to cutting off the top of my tree. I think it's more about trying to manipulate or manage my attitude and actions. I wonder where those 10 pounds came from. I started to kind of go down my own tree, and I realized there was a lie that was in the garden of my heart, and this is what it sounded like. God had asked too much of me. And I didn't like the way he was rewarding me, so I was rewarding myself in the form of a bowl of chocolate ice cream. And losing 10 pounds in that year was not about me eating less and running more. It was about the kind of conversations I needed to have with the Lord, about the kinds of things that were growing around in my garden. And I think, when I think about throwing the first punch, this idea has framed the way that I view my spiritual life. I mean, I'm always asking, what would the enemy want to have happen here? What lie does he want to take root in my heart? And what can I do in order to get it out? I was on a walk with Todd the other day, and we were talking about going away together for a week, or a few days at least, with just the two of us. And the walk was supposed to be really fun. We were going to talk about where we were going to go. And man, 100 yards into that thing, and we apparently had different ideas about where to go and how much money to spend and how long to be gone and who to stay with the kids. And 200 yards into it, I'm thinking, I don't want to go anywhere with you, by the way. Have a nice time on your trip. And we were emotionally disconnecting from each other, because that can happen sometimes in totally healthy, good-willed, God-fearing people. And I was in the middle of that, and my sin nature would want to like do everything I can to manipulate or control or change his mind in order for him to do what my will was. But I was going down that tree in my brain, and I was doing the work of exercising those spiritual muscles. And Todd looked at me and he said, what do you think the enemy wants to have happen here? He doesn't want us to go reconnect. He doesn't want us to rest. He doesn't want restoration to happen. He wants disconnect. And he was exactly right. And it took that moment for me to realize, man, this enemy is trying to plant seeds in my garden, and he has no authority over me. Every time I pray now, that's exactly how I pray. With the authority I have as a co-heir with you, God, I say he can't come here. He doesn't get to change what my tree looks like. I want my tree to bear good fruit. So I would need to put good work in to that root system. And I'm happy to report we eventually spent a lovely week in Florida. But that whole thing was on track to being disrailed because I was allowing lies to impact my attitude and actions. Like, I deserve this, I need this, I'm better. Actually, even pride was going to threaten to take over some of that. And I think there is this spirit we need to have in the middle of moments where God is restoring us that says, God, Like, I literally belong to you. My input comes from you. My output needs to look like you. My activity needs to look like you. I need to belong to you. There's this Hebrew word that has really been like a North Star for me. If I was ever going to pick my favorite, this might actually be it. It was a word I learned in 2018, and I remember years ago I heard it. It's the word Hinneni, and we translate in our Bibles as "here I am." We'll find it 8 times in our Old Testament. Think like Genesis 22, Abraham's on his way up a mountain thinking he's having to sacrifice his son, and God calls down to him, Abraham, and he just responds with that word, Hinneni, here I am. Or in front of that burning bush, when God calls Moses his name, he says, Hinneni, here I am. And I was thinking to myself, this is like, I want this to be the posture of my life, especially when I heard it's better translated. Instead of just here I am, it actually means whatever it is you're asking of me, I'm already in agreement of it. Whatever it is, whether it's confessing sin, whether it's a sacrifice, whether it's an offering, whether it's an invitation, whatever it is you're asking of me, I'm already in agreement of it. And I was telling people that year all about Hinneni. And then halfway through that year, I was in Israel, and I was asking our guide, like, hey, this is the word, and I'm just clarifying with you, am I teaching it right? Am I saying it right? And he said, yes, you are, Beth, but you know that there's one place in the Bible where the Lord says Hinneni to you. I said, there's some place in my Bible where the Lord says, whatever it is I'm asking of him, he's already in agreement of it. Like, where's that verse? And he told me to open up my Bible to Isaiah chapter 58. It says, is this not the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and to break every chain, to share your food with people who are hungry, to provide the wanderer with shelter, when you see someone naked to clothe them, and not turn away from your own flesh and blood. Basically, get about my business. I left you here to do my work, so do it. Help people who are oppressed to break free. Help people who are hungry to be fed. Invite people in who are wandering around. Like, do the kinds of things I have left you here to do. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, Hinneni, here I am. Whatever it is you're asking of me, I'm already in agreement of it. And that is my testimony. Busy trying to do God's work, in over my head, with my family, with my work, with my friends. Like, in any given moment, I don't have what it takes to stay on that mission. And when I realize I need more of something, mercy, wisdom, self-control, patience, like joy, love, I need more of it. I say, Lord, I'm crying out to you for help. And every single time his response to me is the same. Hinneni, here I am, Beth. Whatever it is you're asking of me, I am already in agreement of it.